On the Radio is brought to you by Zurich Insurance, the perfect place to catch up with all things Melbourne. If you enjoy this content and want more inside access from the team, make sure you visit the club website.
Fantastic to have you with me. Back to your calls very shortly. But Josh Mahoney, Melbourne General Manager of Football, has been good enough to join me on what's been an amazing week, really. Amazing in more ways than one. And the Melbourne Football Club has been thrust into the middle of it through no fault of their own. Josh Mahoney joins me. Welcome to you, Josh. Thanks for your time.
G'day, Dwayne. It's certainly a season of first this year.
It is. Gerard Whateley earlier today suggested that you should play Essendon tomorrow night. Would that be possible at all for a football club to get a game together in such a short period of time? I have suggested myself if you had 2.5 days, 3 days of prep, it might be possible, but off the virtually 24 hours of prep, it's almost undoable. What are your thoughts? Would that be an option for you or too impossible?
No, I think what's important is when we found out this news on Saturday, the first couple of questions that you want to know is, will this game go ahead this week? And we were told that it wouldn't. So then our preparation goes straight away into our next opponent, which was Geelong on Sunday. The AFL and the MCC did a great job to coordinate a practice match on the MCG, which we played on Sunday, and then our preparation is all about Geelong.
So it's the best thing that could happen to Melbourne right now is that you can prep for the next two games as they are fixtured, and then you can maybe have the make-up game against Essendon straight after that?
Oh, that's right. If it's straight after that or later in the year, I think everyone in a year where there's not much certainty, you just crave for some. And for us, just to know that our next two opponents are Geelong and then we go up to Sydney and play in Sydney, that's what our players are after, and that allows us to prepare. So although there's a lot of different options being thrown up, we think that's the best preparation for us.
Any advantage or disadvantage out of getting a long break leading into the Cats game?
Oh, who knows? It's one of those seasons where there's so many different scenarios. We're seeing for the first time teams flying up to play interstate and flying back the same day. We're seeing teams in hubs. There's so many different scenarios. So all we speak to our players and staff about is just control what you can control. And for us, it's just we can control our attitude to how we adapt to any changes and our response to anything that is thrown at us. And I'm really proud of the way the boys have reacted, first of all, to play the way they did on Sunday and certainly in their preparation for this week.
Do you feel like you've been disadvantaged by what's happened?
Oh, we've only been disadvantaged because we thought we were well prepared to play Essendon on Sunday, and we picked the team and the guys were ready to go. So from that sense, we were disadvantaged that we just couldn't play a game, and that's basically what we wanted to do for all the work and preparation to do during the week. You want to just play a game. So from that sense, yes. But then the key part of it was just to limit that to just be disadvantaged just on that day. We had to make sure that it didn't flow into the next week, and that's why it was really important to get a game under our belt like we did at the G, and then to make sure it doesn't flow into the next week or the few weeks after that.
So what's the minimum break you can have between games? You'll have to have a shortened break, we presume, to get this make-up game in. Are you expecting an extra week thrown into the fixture, or are you expecting to get some sort of 4 or 5 day break scenario?
Oh, I think that's what the AFL are working to at the moment, and as you've seen, just being able to announce a little part of the fixture gives some flexibility around that. There's some additional weeks in there as well, so there's still a lot to play out around hub situations, and I think at the moment the AFL are working through a number of different scenarios. So, as I've said before, we're ready for whatever gets thrown at us. With a shortened game, it does give you the ability to back up games a bit quicker. Now, our GPS at the moment probably says our players run about 2/3 of a normal game, which you would think they would be able to play some games probably within 4 or 5 days if required, but I'm not getting any sense that would be required just at this moment.
Tightened protocols, have there been reasserting the parameters for your players to make sure that when you've got to stand on the X or the spot and your seat's in that position for a reason, you don't move it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of that today. Our players were back today in a group training, and there's been some amendments to the training protocols. And again, it's just our conversations again with our players and staff, but they're there for a reason. They're there to protect our players, staff and their families, and overall the health of the competition. And we have to make sure we stick to these protocols. And I think we've seen a real life example, obviously at Essendon, and the benefit of the power of work that not only the AFL did in setting up these return to play protocols, but the AFL clubs individually now. Every club's got a role of a compliance officer whose job is to look at the protocols and make sure the facility is set up the right way and everyone's adhering to it. So, all those things that were put in place, we've seen it play out. And, as much as it's disappointing that Essendon's going to lose a few players, the protocols have really shown why they're there and why they're so important.
Have you asked your players to go beyond the requirement to actually, not go to do a bit of a shop of their own if they're desperate for food, to actually get someone else to be doing those things, to keep their spacing a little bit more than they might normally keep their spacing? Is there an understanding that it might be better to go beyond the requirement?
Generally, even when the protocols, were loosened a little bit, it was still that you only leave the house if you really have to. Although you can, it doesn't mean you have to. So certainly that was still across the board for all our players and all our staff. Is still the easiest way to stay healthy is to just be at home and to be at work. And if you can stick to those, you're going to be giving yourself the best chance.
Did you read much into what David Teague said about trying to space Geelong and the way that they try to position their guys to cause Geelong a bit of concern with their defence? Do you read much into that?
I know our coaches have done a lot of work of looking at Geelong. They've been in good form. But Carlton, they played really well. We got a first look at Carlton and particularly their second half against us. They're an improved side and no surprise that they really put it up to Geelong and end up winning that game. So our coaches have got some things in place they want to work on this week. But Carlton did a really good job, as you said, in a number of different ways against Geelong.
So do you go to school on that and say, okay, we can do something similar, or do you expect Geelong to adjust and they'll adjust accordingly? Yeah,
I think if you're going to probably both ways, our coaches go into a game, it's still working on our game style. Like we still got a lot of things we need to improve on. We said against Carlton, our first half, we showed a lot of really good signs, but our second half we still got a lot of areas to improve. So generally the focus is a lot on yourselves and how you want to play with a portion of it of the opposition. So we'll have the same mindset going to this game, still trying to really bed down the way that we want to play. Still the most important thing.
And your thoughts on list sizes and soft caps, because the meeting's taking place today. Have you been given a mission statement where you can add to what the Melbourne Football Club's contribution to that discussion today is?
We were asked for our contribution quite a while ago now. It was probably a couple of months ago around list sizes and any other information around the competition. So that's, again, the AFL has asked a lot of information from the clubs, and we've been able to collaborate on that, and decisions have to be made over the next few weeks, which I feel comfortable they've gathered the information for the right groups of people. They have to make an assessment of all that and make some decisions, and hopefully we get those decisions in the next couple of weeks.
And who are expecting to have to travel? You've got a game at the SCG against the Sydney Swans at the end of this batch of games. Are you expecting that you might have to head to a hub straight after that? What are your thoughts on the hub in Perth situation?
Yeah, we're not sure at the moment on that. We did play in Perth in round one, so we have played the Eagles already.
Yeah.
But whether hubs are required, again, it's one of these seasons, Dwayne, where you just sit and just wait for the information to come through and adapt when you need to. So we're open, as we said, to whatever scenarios play out this season. We're just really fortunate to be back playing and can't wait to get to play against Geelong on Sunday.
Yeah, is a hub in Adelaide a possibility? Have you heard that at all?
No, we haven't heard anything around that. I know that there's a number of different scenarios that the AFL are looking at, and what you can be comfortable with is there's left no stone unturned about how this season's going to play out, if it involves hubs or not.
And I presume the suspension of Charlie Spargo still counts? He can't play?
Yeah, that's right. It was a 2-game suspension, so because there was no game, he still has to sit out another week.
Yeah, cool. And I suppose you might make some changes to the team that didn't play, which would be bizarre.
Yeah, there would be. And that was a conversation that Simon had with the players prior to the practice match on Sunday, that just because you weren't picked in the team or the 22 against against Essendon doesn't mean you won't be picked against Geelong. So that certainly got the competitive juices flowing, and ended up being a competitive hit-out.
Great stuff, Josh. Great to have a chat to you. Appreciate your time, and good luck this weekend against the Cats.
Thanks, Dwayne. Looking forward to it.